Miami Dolphins chose to fire coach Brian Flores. Now, this was one that was
tumultuous NFL tenure has ended after just 13 games. And
today, breaking news, the Broncos have fired head coach Vic Fangio following the
Chicago Bears parted ways with Matt Nagy, let him go fired this morning. No surprise there. The Minnesota Vikings have fired their head coach Mike Zimmer and their general manager.
Report reporting that the New York Giants have fired their head coach Joe Judge after 2 seasons in New York.
Welcome back to another episode of GMs for Hire. I am Jamil King. With me is RJ Strope. Normally we're together, we're talking college football, but today we're changing it up a little bit. We're talking NFL. Obviously the playoffs are coming up this weekend, but before that we've had Black Monday come and go, and several NFL jobs have become open with several coaches getting fired. Most shockingly, Brian Flores was fired from the Miami Dolphins, and finally Joe Judge was fired from the Giants, along with Matt Nagy in Chicago cleaning house. Those are some of the obvious ones. RJ, how'd you feel about some of the coach firings this offseason so far?
I think Miami absolutely missed the ball on this one. This is an awful move by the Dolphins. Brian Flores is one of the great young coaches in the NFL. I get it. This team started 1-7. They had bigger goals. They thought they were going to be playing in the playoffs this weekend. But you do have to understand, you have a quarterback that is developing. This roster isn't complete. It's good. It's not complete. It's not ready to win now. But I think them moving on from their head coach, everyone pretty much agrees that it was a mistake. And if you can unify everybody in the NFL on one thing, you've done something. And I think everybody in the NFL can agree the Miami Dolphins messed up doing what they did. The Giants and Bears, those were obvious. There was no way Joe Judge or Matt Nagy could survive this offseason without all the season ticket holders just giving their tickets back.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. Obviously, Urban Meyer left early in the offseason, causing another big firing, and the Vikings went ahead and got rid of Mike Zimmer. And the Broncos, Vic Fangio is gone, so obviously that is the last one left. As of the time we're recording, the playoffs are underway with the Raiders playing in a game with their job potentially coming open. I personally don't think that job will come open. I don't know about you. And the last one is the Houston Texans, which people are still saying whether it will open or not. Obviously, if the Raiders job were to open, I think that would be a very lucrative job. You already have a quarterback, you have a playoff roster. And with the Texans, obviously, you had to trade Deshaun Watson, you have a plethora of draft picks. So if those two jobs were to become open, I think you would have some suitors want to line up for them because of the possibilities you could have with those two teams. But moving forward, me and RJ, we're going to go ahead and rank the jobs that are open from the job we think is the least attractive to the most attractive. And starting at 6, for me, it's going to be the New York Giants. I think RJ, we might be having the same thinking. For me, there's a lot of problems with the New York Giants. I said over the past few weeks, this is definitely the worst team in the NFL. And they're one of the worst teams I've seen play in a while. And they further enhanced that by running quarterback sneaks on 2nd down, 3rd down, trying to get some field position, I guess. But for me, there's a lot of problems with this team. You have no cap space. You're paying a lot of players on the defensive side of the ball. You don't know what's going to happen with Saquon Barkley. What are you going to do with him? Is he going to come back and be the player that he was his rookie season? And with Daniel Jones, you don't know what you have with a quarterback. I don't think you have a quarterback. I don't think he's that guy for the franchise to go forward with. So now not all is lost for them. You have 2 top 10 picks come up in this draft, and you have a chance to rebuild, which is why I'm glad they went ahead and got rid of Joe Judge and they can start over, because I thought they were going to make a grave mistake holding on to him when you have a perfect opportunity to start the rebuild.
Correct. Yeah, no, that is the only saving grace for the Giants. I also have them dead last as the least desirable job. Number one, you got to deal with the New York market. If you don't come in and win right away, you're on the back page of the New York Post saying, get this guy out of town. He sucks. So that's annoying, and that's something you're going to have to deal with when you take that job. But I agree, dude. You look, I don't think they have a quarterback. I don't understand how Daniel Jones keeps getting opportunity after opportunity. Good for him. That no one's given up on him yet, at least in the Giants organization. But I don't think this guy is a starting quarterback in the NFL. Damn sure ain't a franchise quarterback. He's never going to take a team deep into the playoffs. You're going to have to move on from him. Now, it's not his fault. He is also standing behind the worst offensive line in the entire NFL. This team has so many problems. You mentioned not having a quarterback. They don't have an offensive line. They are bottom 5 in the NFL in cap space. As far as teams that aren't over the cap, they have the least amount of cap space to work with. The only teams below them are over the cap, and they're going to have to cut players. So this Giants, they are in a bad spot right now. The only saving grace for them, you mentioned 2 top 10 draft picks. Now, the question is, what do you do with those? Because you can get 2 of the best players in the entire draft, obviously, when both your picks are in the top 7, 8, something like that. Or do you want to package those 2 top 10 picks and go get yourself a quarterback? Go get Deshaun Watson if Deshaun will even, okay a trade there. Go get Russell Wilson. I'm sure him and his wife Sierra would love to go live in New York if he agrees to a trade there. The first thing you have to do, figure out what you want to do with those draft picks. If you just want to build from the ground up, then I think you can get a young coach that would also build with this team. If you're going to package those picks together and go get a quarterback, you better get an older, experienced coach that's going to mesh well with that quarterback. And who knows, maybe this rebuild won't take that long.
Yeah, there's definitely 2 options for the Giants to have there. I want to be opposed to them going out and getting a top quarterback, because at the end of the day, you're nothing in this league without a top quarterback at the position. So whether they want to go that route or get 2 people in the draft this year, I don't think they should go quarterback that high this year. I don't think this is a really strong quarterback class. So at that point, I would say go get a veteran and just ride with Jones for 1 more year. And then next season, you use what you have and you go get a guy like Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. Those are going to be the 2 top guys next year at the beginning of the draft. But nevertheless, the Giants, they don't have the best opportunities right now. So we'll see what they do coaching wise. Josh McDaniels is the betting favorite right now. Me personally, I have a hard time seeing him leaving New England to come work with whatever's going on down here in New York. I think he's better off just staying up there until a better opportunity comes. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, Josh McDaniels gets interviewed every year, I feel like. He has opportunities every year, but he just stays in New England, stays with Bill Belichick. I think he's kind of waiting, and he's going to be the guy that takes over in New England whenever Bill decides that he's done winning. I can't see him going to the Giants either.
I could definitely see him having a handshake deal with Bill Belichick and everybody going on up there in New England, that he's going to be the guy after Bill. I could definitely see that. And I think that'll probably be the best move for him. But moving on from the Giants, we go to our 5th best job. And for me, it is the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings job, I actually like some pieces on this roster. I love Dalvin Cook. I love Justin Jefferson. They have Adam Thielen, obviously, on offense. The offense isn't the problem. They still have Kirk Cousins in there for 1 more season, possibly. Problems with this team come on the defense side of the ball, where they haven't been very good. They haven't been very productive over the last few seasons, and they have a lot of money tied up in it, and they don't have a lot of cap space. Now, for me, I think that this is an opportunity for them to move away from Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins could potentially be traded this offseason. I would have my eye on the Cleveland Browns, potentially trying to swap Baker Mayfield for Kirk Cousins and get him back with Kevin Stefanski. But that's a talk about for another day. This team, I like some of the pieces that they have, like I just mentioned, but the problem is with the money and with the defense. But you have your draft picks, you have ownership that is willing to take the time for you to become stable, and they also got rid of the GM along with the coach. So now you have a fresh GM and a fresh coach coming in to restart everything. So there's gonna be some continuity there. And the question is, whether do you want to start a rebuild or do you want to go after it with a roster that could have potentially been in the playoffs this season, about a game or 2 away?
Yeah, Minnesota's in a tough spot. I also have them at 5th. We kind of have the same list so far. Minnesota's in a tough spot because, like you said, I actually really like this roster too. Their offense can be electric. You can look at Kirk Cousins' numbers and say he had a great year. Kirk Cousins is not an electric quarterback that is going to just take over and lift a team to the playoffs. I think Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback that won't necessarily lose you a game, but I don't think Kirk Cousins is that, hey, we have the ball with 2 minutes in the 4th quarter, go win us this game. Kirk Cousins isn't that guy. Kirk Cousins can not lose you a game, but I don't know that Kirk Cousins can win you a game. But that being said, the weapons around him, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, if this team had an explosive quarterback, they would be disgusting, and they would also be playing this weekend in the playoffs. I think Minnesota can be good very quick. You mentioned the cap space. That's why I have them so low. This team does not have any flexibility. They are going to have to figure something out. I do agree with you. Kirk Cousins should be on the move. Cleveland would be a great spot. I know we could spend time talking about the quarterback carousel. We'll probably do another video on that. That defense is expensive, and I wonder, are you getting the return on investment that you want from that defense? I would say no. I think you would also say no. They're going to have to figure out what they're going to do as far as getting back under the cap. And look, you still are in a division where you've got to play Aaron Rodgers twice a year. That sucks. Now, obviously, this offseason could get really weird, and Rodgers could be out of the division. If that's the case, Minnesota, they figure out their cap situation. They're number one on my list. I think they're the best. But Justin Fields, also a great young quarterback in your division. Detroit is the best bad team I've ever seen in my entire life. So your division is actually kind of tricky. So this Minnesota job right now, it can be a quick turnaround, take this team to the playoffs next year, or you might have to start a full rebuild.
Yeah, I definitely think they're in that spot, especially if Aaron Rodgers leaves. I agree with you. If Aaron Rodgers leaves, this becomes my number one destination personally.
Yeah.
Because I think the division's for the taking next season if Aaron Rodgers is to leave and Jordan Love is to take over the quarterback position. But like you said at the end there, they're in a position where they could easily make the playoffs next year, or they could easily start a rebuild. So it's going to be interesting to see the direction they want to go in. And I think that all starts with what they do at quarterback with Kirk Cousins, or whether you want to get another veteran, or you want to get a young guy in there. Whatever you want to do that position, it all rides on that and how you get the money fixed around for this defense. As of right now, the betting favorites for this job are Eric Bieniemy, and right behind him is Brian Daboll from the Bills. So that'd be two offensive coaches to come in and replace a defensive-minded coach that was in Mike Zimmer. So we'll see where the Vikings go in that aspect. But they're right now, I think for me and you, they're at 5, but they could easily shoot up. And me and you love the roster, so we got to see what they do, some offseason moves. So 5 isn't really too low. They're nowhere near the Giants at that 6 spot for me. I think it's
Absolutely
a far gap
not.
from 5 to 6 for me, and I think for you as well. But moving on, the job we think is the next best, coming in at number 4. For me, it's the Chicago Bears. And I have the Bears and the Vikings kind of in a lump together because, as you said when we talked about the Vikings, the division can be tricky. The Packers have Aaron Rodgers. We don't know if he's going to stay or leave. I think he's going to stay as of right now because I don't know why you would want to leave the best team in the NFC. But that's a story for another day. It's something with the Bears. They have Justin Fields, a nice young rookie quarterback that already has experience. You have money that you can spend on other pieces on this team. The problem comes in is it's the lack of first round pick, which really, if Justin Fields is what you think he is, that's not too much of a problem long term because you've landed already your franchise quarterback. And now you're coming in with a new coach and a new GM, like we mentioned with the Vikings, a continuity thing when you have a guy bringing in his own people. You can see some things go that way. So for me, the Bears, they're not a bad job at all. You're in a division that can be open depending on what happens. It's just there's no first round pick. So at the beginning, it's going to hurt a little bit, but they have a roster and a quarterback that could potentially be a great team. And it's a great franchise already. So.
Yeah, no, I think Chicago's right there also. But at number 4, I've got Denver. And this is a tricky one because out of all of these openings that we have, like all these current NFL openings, I think Denver probably has the best roster. I think they have one of the best running back tandems in the entire league. They've got some weapons outside on the perimeter. Their defense is not bad. Obviously, getting rid of Von Miller signaled that, they aren't where they think they are. But this defense isn't awful. This roster is the best out of the 6 openings we have. If they had a quarterback, because I'm sorry, Teddy Bridgewater is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. I tried to tell everybody that last year when he was in Carolina, and Denver's like, no. We'll take it. We'll take it. Okay, I don't know what you saw, but what everyone else has seen is that Denver needs a quarterback. And so if Denver can get a quarterback similar to Minnesota, this is a team that's going to be in the playoffs next year. And I think the big one out there is Aaron Rodgers. There's all these rumors about could Denver make that move for Aaron Rodgers? If they do, and Aaron Rodgers is on the Denver Broncos, this team gets pretty deadly. But the reason I have Denver so low, you are in a division where 6 of your games, every single year, no matter what, 6 of your games are going to come against Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Derek Carr, who I think is the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. Those are 3 very good quarterbacks. That's 6 of your games every year right off rip, no questions asked. That is a tough sell for a new coach. Now, obviously, coaches aren't scared of competition, or they shouldn't be. You come in, you say, well, I'm going to beat Mahomes. Well, that sounds good, but let's see it. Because it's been, 4 or 5 years now, and I haven't seen anybody consistently beat Patrick Mahomes. So if you're in a division with those quarterbacks, which also have good rosters, you had potentially 3 of them could have made the playoffs this year. You also have the 9th most cap space in the NFL. This team has $50 million in cap space. They've got the room where they can make a trade for Aaron Rodgers, and you can also still build around him a little bit. So this team is I don't know which way you want to look at it. They're in a very hard division, but if they had a quarterback with the roster they have and the money that they have still to spend, this team could be one of the best in the league. So Denver's interesting to me, but I can't get past the division they play in, and that's why I have Denver down at number 4.
Yeah, the Broncos division is very, very tough over there in the AFC West, and that's something that almost hampered me from placing them where I placed them. But at the end of the day, I like the roster construction enough to where they get a quarterback they can really compete. But to move on, I'll talk more about them later. You'll talk more about the Bears later. Move on to number 3. I got the Miami Dolphins. And like we mentioned at the top of the show, very surprising this job even came open in the first place. They obviously started the season with a win and lost 7 straight. Then they go on the long win streak. They almost find their way into the playoffs. They ultimately don't. They fall to the end. But it seemed like they turned the team around late in the season. Tua Tagovailoa started throwing pretty good towards the end of the season. Had a lot of high completion games. Him and Jalen Waddle seemed to really click. It looks like they found a true stud with him at wide receiver. The defense has a lot of studs out there. They're flying around the ball, making plays. And then they go in separate ways and get rid of Brian Flores. Very, very shocking for me. I know for you were shocked as well, like we mentioned. But for this team, they have a lot of talent. The issues for me with this team, they also have the most cap space in the league. So you come in here, arguably the most cap space in the league, you can make a lot of things happen. And the problems here is, number one, ownership. It's how much was ownership the reason Brian Flores was fired? There's rumors that he wasn't getting along with some people. I don't know how true those things were. So we'll see how hands-on the owner's going to want to be in picking this new coach. Number 2 is, what do they want to decide to do with Tua Tagovailoa? Do they want to go ahead and make the move for Deshaun Watson? Do they want to try to make a play for another veteran like Russell Wilson? Do they want to keep Tua and let him develop? We really don't know. And I think those are the question marks surrounding this team that are the problems.
Yeah, no, I agree. There are a ton of questions in Miami, but at the end of the day, it's Miami, and that's not a bad place to live. Mm-hmm. So that's why they haven't been on my list yet. Number 3, I've got Chicago. I know you had them at 4. I've got them right there at 3. The reason I have them this high has everything to do with number 1, Justin Fields. That guy, I think he can be a great quarterback. We saw what he was at Ohio State. I can't really put too much stock into what I saw year 1 because he was behind a bad offensive line. He had Matt Nagy coaching, and he had to deal with the fact that he wasn't the guy. For some reason, Matt Nagy kept throwing Andy Dalton in there like he didn't want to commit to Justin Fields, even though you spent a top 10 pick on the second best quarterback in the draft class, and you don't want to hand the keys to him. Made no sense to me. Obviously, when you have a young quarterback like Justin Fields, you would hope to see flashes of greatness from him, but I just don't think he was in a position to succeed right away year 1 like we've seen with other quarterbacks. So I'm not worried about Justin Fields, and I think that is why Chicago is a very attractive job to me. We can make the same argument we made about Minnesota. You have to play Aaron Rodgers twice a year. Detroit is the best bad team. Same thing we said for Minnesota. You can say it for Chicago. But this team does have some cap space. They've got, right now? $43 million in cap space, the 11th most in the league. So you've got some money to work with. You can keep some of your own guys. You can go get Justin Fields some help. I think that is a winnable situation there. This franchise has a long history of winning and tradition and stuff like that, and I think it would be a fun job to have. Like, you're the head coach of the Chicago Bears. Like, that's a marquee job. That's up there with the Steelers, Packers, Cowboys, in my opinion. I think the Bears is that important. So the drawback with the Chicago Bears, no first round pick. Obviously, they shipped that one off to the Giants, so now the Giants have an extra pick. But the first round pick, that is just the guy that sells jerseys. You can still build a roster with rounds 2 through 7. So I'm not going to hold that against them too much. You've got Justin Fields. It's a good job. If you didn't have Justin Fields, Chicago would be dead last, maybe worse than New York.
Worse than New York. That's pretty bad. But like you said, I like how you mentioned there, rounds 2 through 7, you can still get guys to build the roster around. Obviously, you don't want the first round pick, but as long as Justin Fields hits, that pick really isn't important. And me and you, I mentioned the Dolphins here. You mentioned the Bears here. It's interesting that the leading candidate for the Bears right now, Vegas odds, is Brian Flores to take over that job from Miami to Chicago. And right behind him is Mr. Harbaugh coming from the University of Michigan. So we'll see if either one of those are the answer. I think that they would lean to getting an offensive-minded head coach. So I don't know if Flores would necessarily be the guy there, because I feel like they want to get a guy to come in and mold Justin Fields. But we will see what they do with that.
Well, and that's interesting with Chicago, because Brian Flores, obviously being a defensive guy, this team, obviously the 85 Bears is the first thing you think of when you think of the Chicago Bears organization. So you would like to bring that tough physical defense back to Chicago. That'd be great. Jim Harbaugh obviously played for the Bears. Like, this would be a good fit for Jim Harbaugh. If he's going to make the move to the NFL, I think it's the Bears. Personally, I want him to stay at Michigan. I still think Ryan Day should entertain some offers. I know he's getting paid at Ohio State, but man, him and Justin Fields together, that's dynamite.
Yeah, you've been on that Ryan Day train for a while. You want him to come to Chicago. Shoot, they do that second round. Might as well get Chris Olave and just make it a trifecta and just get all the Ohio State guys in there to run the offense.
Watch out.
We'll see if Ryan Day is to make the move. We'll see if they even get him in for an interview. But to continue off our teams, at number 2, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, they have a lot of great things to offer and a lot of horrible things to walk into. For starters, obviously, you have the big fish. You have Trevor Lawrence. Last year's top prize, number 1 pick. Everybody thought he was surefire, number 1 quarterback, best prospect we've seen in a long time. He's shown some flashes, and there's a lot of times where he struggled a lot. But to continue, you have the number 1 overall pick in this draft class. And with this number 1 overall pick, you can go in a couple different directions. Do you get one of the top pass rushers? Or do you get your future left tackle, right tackle, wherever you want to put them? And to continue, you have a plethora of money. You have a lot of money to have in Jacksonville. You live in Florida, no state tax. You can overpay some players or underpay some players where they know they're going to get a lot more money because they don't got to get taxed on it. They can come be a part of a rebuild, come be a part of something great like the Jaguars tried to do a couple years ago, where all the players got at Tom Coughlin and they wanted to leave. But the problems with this team lie so much deeper than that. The problems with this team are internally. The franchise's ecosystem inside is very toxic right now. Obviously, the owner, Shad Khan, he's going to give you time, but the problem is this team's been a laughing stock, and they want their GM gone. The fans dress up as clowns at the game. It's all around bad, toxic situations to walk into. There's a lot of things you need to fix, and it's not going to be very quickly if you're the Jaguars coach.
No, this is a long-term job right here. I also have Jacksonville at number 2, and mainly it's because of Trevor Lawrence. Come on. He's touchdown Jesus for a reason. I love the guy. If you're going to be a head coach in the NFL, you need 2 things. You need a quarterback. Right off, you absolutely have to have a quarterback. I believe Jacksonville has one. You're going to need some money to build around that quarterback. Jacksonville has the 3rd most in the entire league, 3rd most cap space, that is, over $71 million. Like you said, they can overpay some players, and I think they should. The reason I have Jacksonville at number 2 and why I view them so highly is there's nothing there. And I know some people look at that and they're scared. I look at it as you can do whatever you want. There is nothing. I'm not exaggerating. You have one good player on offense, and his name is Trevor Lawrence, and you have one good player on defense, and his name is Josh Allen. Other than that, you can pretty much come in and be like, all right, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We got all this money, let's spend it on this. Oh, we have the number 1 pick, we're going to get this guy. Not to mention that number 1 pick, you have 12 picks in the upcoming draft. I know everybody looks at that number 1 pick and thinks that's, the big deal, but this team has 12 picks in the draft this year. If they can get right, if they can just draft right, do the right things, make smart decisions, this isn't going to be that long of a rebuild. I think this team can make a lot of different moves. I could probably do an entire video on just what I want the Jacksonville Jaguars to do this offseason. I think, and I know you're going to bring up who the head coaching candidates are, like the best, like the betting favorite and all that. How cool would it be if the Jacksonville Jaguars went and got Byron Leftwich, brought him back to Jacksonville where he took them to the playoffs. He was a star there. Not a superstar, not the Super Bowl winning guy, but he was a star quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Goes and, goes some other places, been a coordinator here and there. And he comes back as a head coach of the Jaguars, has a great young quarterback in Trevor Lawrence that he can mold and, to help him through. Like, hey, I was a young quarterback in Jacksonville. I know exactly what you're going through. Let's do this. Let's do that. You can build around him. If Atlanta is serious about shopping Calvin Ridley, why not go get him a weapon? I think Jacksonville can just do so much. I think there's so much flexibility, so much. You have everything in front of you. And I think that's why I think Jacksonville is the second best job opening right now in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree with you on a lot of things you said. I do think they have more than two good players on the whole team, though. Other than that, I agree with a lot of what you said. And I like how you said, there's nothing there. So you have the ability to come in and make your own moves, which leads me back to the internal things that are the problem with this team and how there's just so many problems where you can come in and, like you mentioned, it's going to be a long-term rebuild. But if you have the right mindset and you come in ready to build, you can build something here because it needs to get built. There right now we have water and we need to build on top of it. We need to build Noah's Ark. Basically, we gotta just bring in the animals. We gotta save them. We gotta save the fans of Jacksonville. They need something to be saved with. And obviously, if you bring in the right guy and he's willing to go the distance, like you mentioned, Byron Leftwich, the guy that played for this franchise. So if you could bring in someone like him, a young head coach, offensive minded, work with Trevor Lawrence, give him the time. He knows all about Jacksonville already. I think that could work. The problem with Byron Leftwich that I think isn't getting talked about with him, being a Bucs fan, is this is his first big time job. So how extensive is his coaching tree going to be? So who's he going to bring in to be his assistants? I think that's the only possible turn off that teams will have on Byron Leftwich. I think he's ready to take the reins in Jacksonville. If he's ready to go, I wish him all the best of luck. But he's obviously the second best betting favorite. Bill O'Brien is number one right now, which is interesting because we just mentioned how it's going to be a long-term rebuild and you can shape things the way you want. Well, Bill O'Brien had the keys to that in Houston, and we saw what happened at the end. Bill O'Brien, the GM, horrible mistakes. Bill O'Brien, the coach, good guy, sign me up. But Bill O'Brien, the GM, proved that he made bad decisions that got him fired out of Houston, and I would be very, very interested to see if they hired him, what creative control he would have.
Jacksonville is in Houston's division. You saw firsthand what happened with that franchise. They were very good. This was a very good team. And just day after day after day, Bill O'Brien was like, oh, J.J. Watt, future Hall of Famer, we don't need him. DeAndre Hopkins, I don't need that guy. Like, this guy cannot run anything. You talk about handing the keys to someone. This guy should never hold keys ever again in his entire life. Someone else needs to hold the keys and open the door for him. Bill O'Brien in Jacksonville would be 5 steps backwards. And if that is the move that they make, then I think those fans should keep dressing up like clowns at their football game until the general manager is fired and until the owners sell the team, honestly, because Bill O'Brien would be a colossal mistake in Jacksonville. I agree. Byron Leftwich, we don't know the coaching tree, who he would hire. But you look at some of the older, more experienced coaches, like Doug Peterson comes to mind. Doug Peterson got fired from Philly because him and the owner weren't getting along. You talk about the toxicity that there is in Jacksonville between the general manager, the owner, all the upper echelon guys. Doug Peterson is not going to get along with any of them. And that's going to be another problem in Jacksonville. So I think a young coach like Byron Leftwich that can kind of, not saying you can tell him what to do, but won't be so quick to bounce back like Doug Peterson would. I think that's the direction Jacksonville kind of wants to go right now.
Yeah, we would definitely see where the Jags go with this team. I think we can both agree, though, that they have a lot of assets that you want and the quarterback and the money. But it's just going to be a long time, and you're going to have to be patient. It's going to be a 3 to 4 year thing. It's not going to be a 1 to 2 year thing. So we'll see what the Jaguars can do. Obviously, they have the number 1 pick again. So we'll see what they go ahead and do with that coaching position. And to wrap it up, the number 1 job that we think is available this offseason, obviously, we're going to differ on this because there's a team I haven't mentioned. There's a team you haven't mentioned. And for me, it is the Denver Broncos, the team you hit on earlier, and a team that you mentioned. They have arguably the best roster of all the people that we just mentioned. They have the running back tandem. They have their deep at receiver with Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick. They got Noah Fant tight end. They got Patrick Surtain at corner. They got Justin Simmons at safety. The list goes on and on. This team is deep, but the problem is, and the problem has been since Peyton Manning left, is they haven't hit on a quarterback. And truthfully, they really haven't had a head coach either that really hit. So they've struggled to find a coach that'll hit and a quarterback that'll hit, and those go hand in hand. If you can't get a quarterback, your coach is probably going to suffer the fate of getting fired, and that's what's been happening in Denver. And for me, this team, their number one priority and the only priority they should have this offseason is landing a superstar quarterback, whether that be Aaron Rodgers, whether that be Deshaun Watson, whether that be Russell Wilson. You have to go out and get a game-changing quarterback to help you with this roster, because like you mentioned earlier, the reason you didn't have them high is because you're playing 6 games against Derek Carr, Patrick Mahomes, and Justin Herbert. So you have to have a quarterback with a lot of horsepower that can go with those quarterbacks that have the horsepower and the different players to go along with them. So obviously you got to fight fire with fire, and you have to land a quarterback. And for me, if they do that, this is one of the better teams. If they get a quarterback, they become the best team out of all this list. I think they become one of the better teams in the league that can easily fight for playoff spot next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we both agree this team has the best roster out of all the jobs that are open right now. Obviously, I don't like that division they're in. I don't want to have to play 6 games against those teams. That sucks. I would say about Denver, you mentioned the Peyton Manning thing. If Peyton Manning doesn't decide to sign with the Denver Broncos, does John Elway still have a job? Because John Elway has not found a quarterback, has not found a head coach that can consistently win there. He really hasn't done that great of a job in his role, whatever it is now. I guess he got some promotion, so he's technically not the general manager.
Yeah, he's not the GM anymore. He's something football operations on something.
Yeah, whatever. But, that's literally only because Peyton Manning decided to go there. Because if Peyton Manning didn't decide to go there, Denver's had some bad quarterbacks. They have not had it figured out. But anyway, for me, come on. The best job in the NFL right now that's open is the Miami Dolphins. This team was fighting for a playoff spot up until a couple weeks ago. I think Miami actually has a very good roster. I think their defense is super underrated. I think the Miami Dolphins quietly have one of the best young defenses in the entire National Football League. So you already have one side of the ball that is very solid. You don't have to completely overhaul. Their weapons, Mike Gesicki, they got to re-sign him. You've got Jalen Waddle. You have some weapons. I would like to see them get a true stud running back. I'm not of this belief that you can just get a guy from Foot Locker, put him in there, and he's going to run for 120. I think you have to invest in all positions, and running back position is important in this league, I think. I would like to see them do that, but the quarterback position is obviously the most important position in football, and Miami's got a big decision to make. And this is also why I have them number 1. Tua isn't a bad quarterback. I really don't think that Tua is a bad quarterback. I think he's good. I think Tua has had to deal with a lot of stuff that is out of his control. Ever since he got to Miami, the talk has been, should they have taken him or Herbert? Deshaun wants to go to Miami. They should just trade Tua and go get Deshaun. Are they going to get Deshaun? Are they going to get Deshaun? Tua has been handed a bad deal in Miami. I think they've mistreated him so far. So whoever that new coach is, come in and figure out, is Tua the franchise quarterback of the Miami Dolphins? That's got to be job number 1. If the answer is yes, cool, build around him. You have the most cap space in the entire NFL. You have $75 million to go spend. And Miami, you don't necessarily need to overpay for players because it's Miami. Everybody wants to go to Miami. Come on. That's one of the reasons I have them number 1 on this list. Who wouldn't want to live in Miami? I know I would. But if Tua is not your guy, you don't want Tua, all signs say Deshaun Watson wants to be a Miami Dolphin. Go get Deshaun Watson. Okay? You have a good young quarterback in Tua. You have draft capital. Go get Deshaun Watson. This division isn't what this division was 5 years ago. Okay? You don't have Tom Brady in there that you have to look up at. Josh Allen, obviously, great young explosive quarterback, but he's still getting to his peak. I'm not scared of Josh Allen yet. The Patriots, obviously, they're in the playoffs with a quarterback that I don't think is that good, and the Jets are the Jets. So this division isn't too far off. Like, if the Miami Dolphins had Deshaun Watson with some of their weapons and that good young defense, I think Miami makes a lot of noise in year one under whoever this next coach is. Now, I don't know who's going to take that job. I would hope that it's an offensive guy that's going to come in and say, all right, Tua, you're my guy. We're going to be best friends now. Here's, let's do this, or go get Deshaun, because this team can be really good really quick.
Yeah, I definitely agree with some of the things you mentioned about Miami. Obviously, you live in Miami, so it's not going to be too hard to get some people to convince them to come play for the Dolphins. You have all the money in the world, but I agree with you with the Tua Tagovailoa thing is he hasn't been really given a fair shot. He's always had to look over his shoulder. He's always had to hear the noise, and he basically came out and said it kind of this season, basically said that he was getting angry because he wasn't getting, the full trust. He wasn't getting, hey, like, you're our guy, like, we got you. He's never had that in the NFL, and I agree with you that whoever comes in needs to decide whether he is or he isn't. Either keep him or you don't. But the problem right now with that is that, let's say Deshaun Watson is the guy, you go get him. They just had Davis Mills play pretty good this season. So do the Texans even want Tua Tagovailoa? So at that point, you also have to go ahead and find another trade option for Tua, which will probably be out there. There's a couple different options you can mention that need a new quarterback that can try something new. So I don't think they have too much of a problem getting Tua out. Obviously, they're not going to recoup the same value that they drafted him with. But if Watson's the guy, you go ahead and get Watson, you trade whatever it takes to get him. And like you mentioned, this division could potentially be wide open for you to arguably go ahead and take. The Bills look good, but they're not unbeatable. And the Patriots look solid this season, but they had their problems of their own. So if the Dolphins come in, they can make some noise with Deshaun Watson, or even if they keep Tua and they can just keep building on the success they had this season. The sky's the limit for this team. They could possibly be a playoff team. And, when it's shocking that a coach gets fired, it probably means a couple different things. But one of them was the team was playing pretty well, so they weren't necessarily horrible. As of right now, the betting favorites for this job are Brian Daboll from the Buffalo Bills, like we mentioned, and a guy you mentioned earlier, Doug Peterson. So it would definitely be interesting to see what way the Dolphins want to go with this head coaching hire.
Yeah, Doug Peterson got tired of living in Philly. Go live in Miami for a while. Defrost a little. Hell yeah. I think Doug Peterson would actually be a really good fit in Miami. I would really like to see that. I think he got handed a raw deal. I think he should still be the coach of the Eagles, but whatever. That's gone. Yeah, Doug Peterson in Miami, that would be interesting. And I would like to see that.
Yeah, that would be interesting. It's funny you mentioned earlier that, Doug, he's not afraid to voice his opinion when he was in Philadelphia. We heard that there was problems with Flores and the coaches and the upper echelon of the front office. So we'll see what the Dolphins decide to do ultimately with that job decision for the new head coaching job. Obviously, there's a lot of different jobs that were on the line this offseason. We went ahead and we broke it down for you why we like some of them, why we hate some of them. Well, I think we only hated the Giants, to be honest. Yeah. That's probably the only job that really, really stinks. The Jaguars have their problems, but they have a lot more to look forward to, I think, than the New York Giants do. Excuse me, not the Jets. But RJ, any last words about the head coaches this offseason?
Yeah, I really wish that this wasn't all the jobs that were open. I wish there was a job in Charlotte, North Carolina that was open. Social media pretty much bullied the Giants into firing Joe Judge. Charlotte, get your Twitter fingers ready. Let's bully David Tepper into making a move also.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, if he sucks again this year, he'll for sure get fired next season. Y'all could have maybe one of the most lucrative jobs in the market next season.
Yeah, because they're going to have the number one pick and get Bryce Young.
Well, if that really happens, that'd be crazy. I feel like your roster is not bad enough for y'all to get the number one pick. We'll see what you guys do with Christian McCaffrey. We'll see if you guys move along from him. But for the end of this 2022 head coaching video, RJ is already looking forward to 2023 when he could hopefully, in his mind, be talking about his Carolina Panthers as the number one job opening. But for now, I'm Jamil. That was RJ. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good one.